Hello everyone. Today we are continuing our series thinking about the heart. Now we started this series last week where we thought about the heart being the main thing. It's really important because God cares about the heart. It's what kind of drives our decision making, isn't it? What we care about as well is shown in the heart. And so the heart is really important, far more important than kind of what we look like on the outside. And we're going to continue to think about that today. Now, if you are in a place where you can do this, then kind of maybe you can take this video with you. Go and wash your hands. If you're in the kitchen, then go over to the sink, wash your hands. But keep listening whilst you're doing that. Okay, so if you can't keep listening and wash your hands at the same time, then don't wash your hands, just keep listening. Okay? But make sure you can keep listening whilst, if you want to wash your hands and can do that at the same time, then go and do that. Now, we're doing a lot of hand washing at the moment, aren't we? What does hand washing do? Well, this is heavy. My sanitising hand wash says it's removing grease and grime, leaving hands soft, supple and delicately fragranced. It says it's sanitising, it's making it clean. Okay, so we're cleaning our hands. So this is what I fill up. This is what I fill up in my little pot here. So I'm going to wash my hands. Now we kind of wash our hands. You know, you might sing Happy Birthday. We were taught that, weren't we, at the beginning of coronavirus last year? You kind of sing Happy Birthday, Happy Birthday. We don't do that with Beth. We do we do the Peppa Pig version. So we go wash your hands, wash them nice and clean, bubbly, scrubbly, scrubbly, bubbly, wash them nice and clean. Wash your hands, wash them nice and clean, bubbly, scrubbly, scrubbly, bubbly, wash them nice and clean. We sing that to Beth and she loves it. And so we managed to clean her hands just before we're eating. And so we make sure that we clean it really carefully, don't we? We need to make sure that we get in between our fingers, and we do our thumbs, don't we? And we do our wrists. And we make sure that we get in our nails, so we scratch our nails, don't we? In our palms of our hands. And we make sure that they are really nice and clean. And we can tell we've got a good amount of soap on there, because you can see the bubbles. Bubbly, scrubbly, scrubbly, bubbly. Wash them nice and clean. But why do we wash our hands? Well, we wash our hands to make them clean, yes. But we wash them because our hands might be dirty. And so we need to clean them to make sure that they're not dirty. We're not spreading germs. But now that my hands are clean, does that mean that I'm not dirty? Oh, it's just my hands that are not dirty. Maybe I need to wash my whole body. Now I've got something here. This says hair and body wash. Okay, hair and body wash. So that's pretty much all, the outside of me, hair and body. Yeah, I could wash my whole self with that. And it says it's it says external use only. Now if I want my whole self to be clean, this only washes the outside. External use only. You can't really see that, can you? It doesn't focus very well. But it does say it honest, I promise. External use only. So how would I wash my insides? I certainly shouldn't be drinking this. And I shouldn't be cleaning the insides of me with this sanitising hand wash either. Does it matter if only the outer side of me is clean? Well, Jesus says it's very important that we care about our insides as well as our outsides. But why? Why does that matter? Well, grab your Bibles and we're going to jump into Matthew chapter 15. So we're going to flick through from the beginning. So we're in a gospel. So we're going to flick through. So we go all the way past the Old Testament, all the way through to Matthew. So we've got the Old Testament. The Old Testament kind of ends with those prophets, remember? So we have the history books, then we've got the wisdom literature, and then we've got the major prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and we've got Daniel, and you get to the end of the Old Testament. We've got Zechariah, Malachi, and then we've got the New Testament, and Matthew is the first book of the New Testament. If you've got Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, so if you see Mark, Luke or John, then you've gone too far and you need to go back. And we're looking for Matthew, what was it, chapter 15 I said, wasn't it? Matthew chapter 15. Now, once you find Matthew chapter 15, we find why it's important, why being clean is important, and which parts of us are most important to be clean. So in the first part of Matthew chapter 15, we see that some Pharisees and teachers of the religious law are there, and they are questioning Jesus. They arrived from Jerusalem to see Jesus. So they're not in Jerusalem, they've come from Jerusalem to see Jesus wherever he is at this point. They're complaining to Jesus because his followers are not keeping the traditions that they were supposed to keep. You see, you were meant to wash before you ate. Now, we absolutely do need to wash our hands before we eat. That's really important, particularly at the moment, isn't it? We don't want to transfer any germs kind of into our mouths. Particularly at this time with COVID-19 and coronavirus, we need to make sure especially that we've washed our hands before we eat. But that isn't the kind of washing that they're talking about. They had a tradition that they thought made you yourself clean, not just your hands. And they're saying, why aren't the people with you doing this ritual of washing? And Jesus says right back to them, well, you're complaining about my people not being clean, but actually you're not clean yourself. Yes, you may do ceremonial washing, but you are not clean. In the more important way, Jesus says this about the people who are complaining. These people honour me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Can you see that in verse 8? Their worship is farce. They teach man-made ideas and commands from God. Can you see where this connects with our thinking about heart? It says their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce. They were trying to make themselves clean and therefore be kind of clean before God. They were their tradition was part of their worship of God. But Jesus says it doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because your heart is in the wrong place. They were not doing it because they were not doing it for the right reasons. Jesus then tells this parable. And then in verse 19, so in my Bible it's across the page, so find the little verse 19. From the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, lying and slander. These are what defile you. This is what's making them dirty. Eating with unwashed hands will never defile you. So they're saying, Jesus is saying, it's the heart that makes people dirty, not their hands, in the most important way. When it comes to worshipping God, it doesn't matter if you washed your hands or not. It doesn't matter if you've had a bath or not when you're worshipping God. What makes you dirty before God is your heart, because that is where sin comes from. We know from the Ten Commandments that kind of adultery and murder and theft, they were all listed in the Ten Commandments, weren't they? They are sins. They're things that we do and say and think which put a barrier between us and God. And we can't be with him because of that barrier. And Jesus says these sins are coming from your heart. That's what makes you dirty. And so, just like when we wash our hands, we're not getting rid of the coronavirus if it's inside of us. And so that's why Jesus says it's more important for your worship, for your relationship between you and God, to think about the heart. So, if my sanitizing hand wash only washes my hands, if my body wash is only going to wash the outside of me, and it says, remember, external use only, then what is going to clean my insides? We've got this problem of the heart, that it spews out sin and makes us dirty before God. So how do our insides get clean? Let's watch a short video to find that out.
You're most likely familiar with the 10 Commandments in the Bible, stuff we generally take as good advice. Don't murder, don't steal, honor your parents, the list goes on.
And those are just the first 10. There are actually a total of 613 commands, all given to ancient Israel, found in the first 5 books of the Bible, which in Hebrew are called the Torah.
Now, the word Torah is usually translated in English as the law, because it has all of these laws in it.
And all of the laws that Moses gives to Israel are the terms of that agreement. They're like a constitution. And so some of the laws, they're about rituals and customs that set Israel apart from the nations. Other laws are about social justice or morality. And by following these, Israel would show the other nations what God is like. You guys, I know that you're not going to follow all of God's laws. You've proven to me that you're incapable. And Moses says the problem is that their hearts are hard and that they're going to need new, transformed hearts if they're ever going to truly follow God's law. And he was right. I mean, the story goes on to recount Israel's total failure.
They go into the land, they break all the laws.
Right. Now, the next section of books in the Jewish tradition are the 15 books of the prophets, and they reflect back on the story. For example, Ezekiel, he said that if Israel was ever going to obey the law, God's Spirit would have to transform their hard hearts into soft hearts. And Jeremiah said that's when obedience to God's commands wouldn't feel like a duty, but they would be written deep in their hearts. And Isaiah, he promised a future leader, Israel's Messiah, who will lead all of the people in obedience to the law. Now, in Jewish tradition, all of these books together are called the prophets, and Jesus saw himself as continuing that story. So he agreed with the law and the prophets when he taught that it's out of the human heart that come the most ugly parts of human nature. It's like the default setting of our hearts is opposed to God's law. But Jesus also said that he came to solve that problem, and in his words, to fulfill the law.
So what does he mean there, to fulfill the law?
Well, first he said that the demand of all of the laws in the Torah could be fulfilled by what he called the Great Command, that we are to love God and to love others.
So that seems pretty easy. I mean, we all want to love.
Well, we think we want to love. But Jesus showed how love is far more demanding than we realize. So he quotes the law, do not murder. And he says, yes, not killing someone is a very loving thing to do. But then he also says that when you treat someone with disrespect or when you nurse resentment against them, you're also violating God's moral ideal because you're not treating that person with love. And so Jesus said true love ought to extend even to our own enemies. So even though this command seems very simple, Jesus showed how our hearts are not currently equipped to fulfill even this basic command of God to love others.
And that's kind of a downer.
But where Israel failed, Jesus brought this story to its fulfillment. As Israel's Messiah, he fully loved God and others, and he showed all of the nations what God is truly like. He did this through his acts of compassion and mercy, and ultimately by loving his enemies even unto death.
Why did Jesus have to die? You know, that's a question that we all ask at some point, and I want to explain it in a way that might make sense with a visual. You see, Jesus came to take the punishment of our sin, the sin that you have done or would ever do. That's what he came to do. And see, you here look pretty good. I mean, come on, you look nice and clean, just the way you were meant to be. Oh, I could drink you up. But we've all done stuff that we shouldn't do. We've all sinned in different ways. And the problem is when we sin and we bring sin into our lives, it changes us. It changes who we are, and suddenly there's elements in us that weren't meant to be there. Maybe it's bad attitudes, or you yelled at your parents, or you lied to a friend, or you cheated on a test, or you hurt someone, or you hurt yourself. Whatever it might be, it's not the way you were meant to be. And God saw this, and he didn't want it to be this way. He said, this was not how I intended you to be. So God had a perfect rescue plan. And that rescue plan was Jesus. Now, Jesus was perfect. He came and he lived a perfect life. He was without sin. So the question was, what would happen if Jesus took the sin of the whole world, all of the sin, and put it in himself? And so he went to the cross and he took our sin. And Jesus took all that sin and put it in himself. But that's the thing, is Jesus took our sin to the grave, but then he left it there. He left that sin in the grave, and he came back with new life for all of us. And he was still perfect and pure and blameless and everything that we needed. And so you, with all of our sin and with all that's inside of us, you have the ability to say yes to Jesus, because we don't need sin anymore. Sin has been defeated by the power of the cross and what Jesus did and the power of his resurrection. And so when you say yes to Jesus and you ask him to fill you with his power, it changes everything. Jesus brings freedom. You couldn't have taken this out on your own. You could not remove the sin from yourself. Only Jesus could do that, because he died and rose again to defeat the power of sin and bring us true freedom. And that's why Jesus had to die.
So we've thought about the importance of being clean on the inside, because out of the heart comes sin, and that makes us kind of dirty before God, and we need cleaning. And it's Jesus who wipes away our sin and makes us clean. And the Holy Spirit changes our hearts bit by bit. So we are going to finish our time together by singing an action song about this mighty, mighty Saviour who washes us clean.
No one is good, no one is holy before God. I need someone to cleanse me.